We're live and terrible at going live.
User errors are just so humbling.
So if you only do this once a month, it is extremely easy to forget that Safari doesn't play with YouTube for streaming, even though it looks like it does, and there are no notifications that it doesn't.
No notifications at all, unless you think to open up a particular page.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna make sure that we can see the chat here. I think this is where it'll go. We don't know if anybody's, we actually have people showing up. Thank you for your patience.
Happy New Year.
Terrible, terrible podcasters.
Oh, so funny. Thank you for saying hello.
Hi, everybody. I just said that, yeah, we're terrible at this, and I can't schedule the live when we're apart. So there was nothing for you to like click to like notify me when it goes live and all of that. So anyways, if you are on Apple, don't try to stream through Safari. It won't work, but it won't tell you that it's not working or why it's not working. So now that we're on Google Chrome, hello, Google.
Hi.
Welcome to our lives. I'm Sarah, also known as Imagine Landscapes.
And I'm Katie, also known as Roar114. I feel like I should be saying things because in the audio podcast I do.
Yes.
Oh, I dropped a stitch.
That's not good. So what we're going to do here is we're going to give a extremely casual insight into our knitting life and ask questions and see how everybody is doing. If there are things you want us to show more closely, we can do that because it's not the audio podcast. Welcome to everybody and a happy new year to everybody, wishing us a happy new year as well. We've got people in at least 2 languages wishing us a happy new year. In German, we would say Guten Rutsch. I always forget how to do like the Guten, Gute. Anyways, you slide into the new year. So it's like a happy slide.
Oh, yeah. Katie, you're not late. We were late. We're just starting. Yeah, it's just us.
A podcaster is never late. A podcaster arrives precisely when the podcast starts.
That's so funny. Somebody's saying that Nombleberry and Newt joined them for a New Year's breakfast.
Well,
excellent.
I'm just going to say there are going to be some Nombleberry spoilers. So if that is an issue for you, why don't we get that out of the way right now? So Nombleberry wasn't alone. There was the big reveal in the mystery knit along was that there was a second gnome to knit. So what a lot of people thought was a hat turned out to be a backpack, and turned out there was a whole other gnome, and then we needed something to put in the backpack, and it turned out that what was going in the backpack was Newt. Now the version of Newt and Nombleberry I could find today was my alternative. In Loopy U, they do 2 colorways, and one is the one that gets photographed. It's more of a neutral winter colorway.
Okay.
And that was the blues and yellows. I couldn't find it this morning, and I was late.
Because it's January 1st, and we were actually up till after midnight, which this one never does.
No, I'm like 9:58, turns off. So I've got the Christmas set of colors from Loopy U, who used Dream in Color. So this is Nombleberry, and it's blowing out a little bit, but then you see, I don't have backpack straps on this version. I am crazy. I gotta finish this gnome. I guess it's not an FO after all, is it? So then there's Newt, and Newt is a little loopy-headed thing with a little bit of in this version, it doesn't show up as much with the 2 colors, but it is a Estonian braid, and the Estonian braid is also on the backpack right there. And depending on where you look, it looks more like chevrons than other like angles. So if yours doesn't look right, it might just be that you're looking at the wrong angle. It's more of a suggested chevron than anything. So I'm just going to turn my phone off. I had it on because we were actually trying to stream, but my YouTube account, I don't know, isn't big enough or something to qualify for live streaming mobile. So when we were troubleshooting, that was one of the things we tried. So I will turn off my notifications now. So Nombleberry has a hat. A lot of people put buttons on or embroidery. This was my version where I didn't do either. Ribbing on the body interspersed with little garter stripes. And then, as noted, a backpack and a gnome that almost dropped in tea. So spoilers are over. I will put them aside. Hopefully you knew what you were getting into when you kept listening. But speaking of tea, let's talk about tea.
Oh yeah, we're both drinking the same thing right now that your family brought back for me from Germany.
Yes.
I'm
Sandra
not,
in particular.
I'm not going to try to pronounce it. So Sarah's going to read the German.
So we've got Schoko Mandelbiscuit. So chocolate almond cookie.
It is so delectable.
Mhm.
Definitely qualifies as cake tea.
Yes, goes on the list.
Yeah.
Not locally available though. But if you do want to order from teekulturbayreuth.de, the Schoko Mandelbiscuit is good. They also hysterically have a Canadian winter, Kanadische Winter, which has bananas in it.
Not a particularly Canadian food, bananas.
And not like a wintry food anywhere, but it's really tasty. It's kind of, I would say, if you're gonna do anything, it's like French toast with like a sort of a cinnamony French toast with the banana sliced on it.
All right.
Maybe. Anyways, as I said, we get this. Sandra got this in Germany, where she lives. So
very, very tasty.
Oh, we also got Bulgarian, which I am not going to attempt because it's not even in the Latin alphabet.
That's not an alphabet I'm familiar with.
So happy New Year's, everyone. How late are you? The good news is you are not late. We started late, Kate, or Katie. So you're good. We're just about to show, we've shown the gnome. Now we're going to show the rest of the knitting. I'm going to start. We're very sock heavy. So we're actually going to be passing the sock blockers back and forth between us. And I'm going to start with my Advent sock. So this is the sock from Cozy Knitter. And you can see here it repeats. So this is the red that starts, but it is a 24 stripe repeat where there might be reds, but they are slightly different reds each time. And this is where it starts repeating again. And every day you knit one stripe on each sock. So they come in two 50-gram balls. And because I forgot what day it was and that life was happening, I did not do a contrast cuff. I really like it when they have a contrast cuff and heel. The toe, so I did the toe and heel this time. I used Leading Men Fiber Arts for the contrast, and I'm pretty sure it's the Green Gables colorway. And so this is this year's 24 stripe 24 stripe sock. And I brought the other 2 years. So this is the third year I've done this. So I brought the other two to show. I'm not going to put them on the sock blockers because I don't have three, and I feel like it wouldn't be fair to have 2 out of 3. So we've got last year's also with green, but green cuff and heel. And then the very first year I did it, I had red. So that's what Katie's holding there. And I find it really interesting because, I mean, there are only so many colors. And so there's and each dyer has sort of an aesthetic, and it's all set sort of Christmassy.
Yeah, you can tell that these are all the same dyer, but they each look different.
Yeah. So this one's got like the 2 pinks and the 2 blues, and that sort of really sets this one apart. This one is much more browns, almost like there's more gingerbread or Christmas tree in there. And then this year, it's sort of a little bit, I don't know what the theme was. I don't know that I remember. Usually in the note, there's like a little, like last year's, it was inspired by ornaments. I don't remember this year's.
You've had a busy fall.
Yes. So either I didn't get it or I didn't read it. Either way, we can both be forgiven because everyone who's involved in crafting is very busy in the fall. You did those too, Carol? Oh, that's awesome. A lot of people do a white heel, toe, and cuff. I think because, at least for the first couple of years, the Cozy Knitter was selling white undyed minis to go with it. But what do people walk on that they can put white on their feet?
Yeah.
I don't understand. I definitely am not ever going to be doing that. It looks fantastic though. Like, I believe their socks look amazing. So yeah, that's my first finished object, but I'm only showing you the one because we're going to be doing this. Do you want to talk? Or do you want
never actually put anything on a sock blocker before, so this is going to be fun.
You did a brown. Yeah. It's really hard when you start because you don't see the colors. In particular, I had a friend wind this up for me. Ellen ordered it for both of us, and then her son wound them up. And so she actually put it in a paper bag, like a gift bag, both balls, and with the yarn just coming out, and taped it shut. So I actually couldn't even look to see like the palette at all. So when I picked my color, I was just like, well, I know what I've done in the past, and green is usually fail safe.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was truly a mystery for me. It was amazing.
Black or gray for contrast. Pretty safe. And also you don't have to worry about what's on your floors or not.
Unless it's
Yeah.
white cat hair, which would be a problem for me.
Well, yes. So if you listen to our audio podcast where we talk a lot more about what we're planning on knitting and go into more depth about things, you will have heard me talk about my holiday baking socks that were a gift from my mother. So here is one of them. So this yarn is my kind of holiday baking from Dye for You, who is a local dyer for me. Lovely plump sock yarn. And hopefully you can catch little hits of this bright green that come in here, which to me just looks like the sprinkles on sugar cookies, which I really love. And then this perfect, it's a little bit cherry red on the video for me, but it's more of a deep cranberry red.
It's like the perfect Christmas red.
Yeah, it's the perfect Christmas red next to the perfect gingerbread brown, really.
Yeah.
So I knit these for my mom. Slight variations to how Sarah and I normally knit our socks. I did a square heel, which you can kind of actually see here. First time doing that, but I figure we tend to have narrower heels, and this one will kind of snug around it a little bit more and
very
grip it.
cup-shaped.
And then Mom wanted to have as little on her toes as possible. And so I knit longer and then did a really shorter toe region for her. So
decreases every round.
So it looks quite short. But I was really happy the way I knit it fit her. This was the second time I knit these socks for her. The first one I got to here, we realized that it was my gauge was too tight and the heel wasn't long enough, the heel flap. But now we're done.
We have a very tall instep in our family, so we need a significantly taller heel. I've experimented with some afterthought heel socks, and the OMG heel. I tried the tall version, and that also didn't work. So I think the heel flap and gusset would have to be the way for us to do things. Enjoying that. Yep. All right. So the next thing that I have finished, since we last did the audio podcast, but not since we last did the video podcast. So it's always like this part of my brain that's like, what's a new? So I didn't even have these going because I was working so much. I was hardly knitting, and the little bit of time I was taking for the Advent sock, 4 rows on each sock, was pretty much the only knitting I was doing other than design work and being on computer all the time in December before Reiner and TS came back with Sandra from Germany. So I was alone for a few weeks. But I finally got to the point where I was back to being just like, I got one huge project done. It was almost like I had only one job again, which gave me evenings and weekends, which are not to be underestimated. No. So I needed something to knit because I could only knit 4 rows a day on the only project that was really going. So I cast on some socks for Reiner. So these are his socks, and they're not quite as bright as on the picture for me. They are less electric grape purple and more royal purple in real life, but they've got a lilac undertone that shows through sometimes that makes the royal purpley bits kind of really pop. Oh yeah, this is just like,
it looks blue.
Ridiculous.
It looks almost cobalt blue.
What's going on the screen for you?
But it's a really beautiful, beautiful purple.
Yeah. He loves socks that are ribbed, and he particularly loves this one pattern called November socks. So it's ribbing, and then every 6 rounds you basically split it off and it forms like a honeycomb. So it's like constantly joining and rejoining. And because you're using twists instead of cables, you actually like decrease the stitches at that point. It makes it tighter.
Oh, okay.
And so because it's ribbing plus that tightness, it just hugs his foot. He loves that pair. I've knit him a couple pair, but you have to pay attention. And socks can't be that for me. If he wants socks, he's getting plain vanilla. So this is his 7th pair of the year, and I aim to knit him 7 pairs a year. Yay! People always ask, how do I decide who gets socks when? Well, it is largely based on who's making puppy dog eyes at me. It's a real struggle, actually, because Reiner is super knitworthy and only wears hand knit socks. He loves them. He would wear others if I made like a decision. We could make it work. We could find other wool socks. We could do other things. He would be amenable to that, but it would definitely be
as much sadness.
Yeah. And on the other hand, I'm the coldest person in my family, and it's my hobby. So I should have lots of socks.
We also have 2 very knitworthy children
who love hand knit socks, and my son is like aggressive in his lobbying. So I prioritize Reiner and me, and I try to give the kids a couple pairs a year. That's just the truth of it. They are way lower on the totem pole, and that's just how I can't knit for everybody all the time. I've only knit one pair for mom, and I never done one for dad. So it's
no, you knit a couple of pairs for dad, because I remember years ago, when dad's chronic pain was much worse, you had knit him a pair of socks this way, and the pearls on the inside, on the bottom of his foot, were too sensitive. And so you're talking about doing, I think it was called
it's called a princess foot.
A princess foot, where you do
pearl the bottom half.
Yeah, so that the flatter stockinette is what's against that.
That's right.
But it's been that long.
20, or not 20, but like 12 years.
Yeah.
It's really tricky. So
yeah, it's hard to figure out where people fall in the ranking. If you listen to our audio podcast,
I'll get to that.
No, we just had a lunch break.
Okay.
We recorded our audio podcast first, and last time I used the word enabling, and was called on it because that has some negative connotations from addiction culture. And you just talked about how the kids are lower on the totem pole, which is also not a thing that we should be saying. So let's maybe talk about them on the ranking.
Yes.
Yes. So as we learn, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to get words out of your mental thing. But yes, the kids are lower on the ranking, and mom and dad are just, I think, not even on.
They're like gifts if I've got time.
Yeah.
They're definitely not getting it. They're not in a pipeline supply, right?
Yes.
It's like it's a festive, frolicky kind of a flourish.
Yeah. Which is why last year mom specifically chose this yarn for her and said, you will be knitting these for me.
Yeah.
Because she knows that you won't knit her socks.
Not likely. No. So I try to do 7 pairs a year for Reiner to kind of keep ahead of how he wears through them. He wears them all the time. He often wears socks in summer, even if he's not wearing sandals, he's wearing socks, and they're wool socks. So this is Bas à Tricot. It is the Purple Dragon colorway, and this is a thinner yarn. So this will be more like a summer sock for him. People say, why don't I darn our socks? Because what Ryan and I both do is we wear this huge area, kind of like 4 inches along here, until it's just like a mesh netting. All that's left is the nylon. There's nothing beside, like I would have to be patching half the bottom of the foot, and what I would be patching it to is already weakened, because we're not doing holes. We're not tearing it. We're not wearing through with our nail in one spot. It just drifts away over a couple years.
I remember years ago, somebody created a sock pattern that was designed for people like you, and the wear pattern, where it had the sole could be removed and replaced, but I don't know whatever happened to that one.
That's an Elizabeth Zimmerman idea.
Okay.
And it's a great idea, but I'd rather knit than repair.
Does he even wear wool socks when you're biking?
No. But when hiking and walking, yes. So we have running socks for running and cycling socks for cycling. But
for everything else,
everything else.
It's a good question.
It is a good question, because for cycling, this would be fine, I think. In terms of, for running, I think it would be like I don't think would be great. That's high friction, high sweat. Whereas cycling, you're just not doing as much with your feet. You're just basically creating wind.
Yes.
Right. All right. So that is the second pair of finished socks I have to talk about. What are you looking for? Yeah. She's just been sitting there with an empty thing, not prepping.
I thought I was like she's handing it off to you,
like an amateur podcaster or something,
like somebody who doesn't have sock blockers. All right. So somebody on my Facebook feed posted a pair of socks that they were knitting out of this yarn, and I went from, right, that's a great dyer, that's beautiful yarn, to ordering it, to it arriving, to casting on, like that. So I'm done. I started this pair of socks on December 12th, and I have finished them already. And if you know anything about me and socks, that's a miracle. So this is Turtle Pearl is the dyer. They're a Canadian dyer, and this is the What Does It Mean colorway. I love the mirrored rainbows. Turtle Pearl also sends you the yarn as two 50-gram balls, so they match, which is also wonderful. This is the type of thing where, yeah, the rainbow on the heel looks really, really good. I agree, Christy, but I'm a little bit sad about this right here. It makes me wish that I either had a rainbow just for the heel or that I had done it in a contrast of some sort.
Or that you just broken the yarn and restarted.
Yeah,
and
that,
you wouldn't have gotten the red.
Yeah, that didn't even occur to me.
Yeah. It didn't occur to me the first few times I did socks like that either, but I've started realizing that I would rather weave in two ends than have something like spill up like that.
Yeah.
Or what I'll do, just so you know, is I will grab from the other end of the ball so that I'm not in, so that
you're not breaking
using
up
the same yarn. It's not a contrasting or whatever, but I'm just knitting from the other end.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a second piece of yarn
Oh,
here.
yeah. Yep, that's smart. I like that idea.
Because again, then this continues on uninterrupted.
But so finish these really, really quickly. I really love them. It's a nice thinner yarn compared to, say, Dye For You or Mud Punch. But this is, yeah, what does it mean, socks? I Kitchenered the toe for the second sock between recording the audio podcast this morning and doing this one now. So I get to wear these tomorrow on a very cold trip back into the city.
And what's funny is people are experiencing you being in the FO section with these.
I know.
And then we'll release the audio podcast on Wednesday and I'll be like, in my works in progress, I just have the how to Kitchener.
Yep. Time is awesome. But yeah, so what does it mean, socks by Turtle Pearl?
And Katie.
And me. I really recommend that you check out Turtle Pearl.
Yeah.
Amazing stripes.
Yeah, and a lot of mirroring effects.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it'll be like, there'll be a center stripe, and then these two will be the same, and then the two outside of that will be the same. So it'll be like 5 stripes, but the center one is a single color, and then it gets usually darker or lighter going out, and so it kind of creates almost like a wave visually.
Yeah.
I love that.
And it looks like I did a square heel on this one as well. So that apparently is going to be my new go-to until I realize how I like them for wearing. So square heel.
Now, we forgot to talk about this on the audio podcast, but when you're doing them, you're discovering that the decreases on the one side, the way they're stacking up, because you know how knit twos togethers and SSKs, like left-leaning decreases never look as smooth, never look as nice. And it's just partly because of the twist in the yarn and the fact that we're knitting on the right hand together for right-handed knitters create a particular look. So,
but it also means they're a bit
stacked,
gappier. So here, there's a little bit more of a gap right there on this side than there is on this side. So that's something that I'm trying to fix in the socks that I'm currently knitting, which I'll tell you about in a minute.
Another FO that I want to talk about is my 7th Sockhead hat. It's my heckin' festive hat.
I love it.
So this is knit with Emma's yarn. I got hair on everything.
Yeah.
This is Emma's yarn, a kit that they created for the Mystery Knit Along, the December Gnome. And I was looking, it's one of the things about working with so many different dyers for the Mystery Knit Along. I'll knit in one thing and then I'll see the sets that the others make and I'm like, And this one in particular jumped out at me because of the 2 greens. I really love traditional Christmas colors. I am all in it for tradition. So my Christmas socks are not ever going to be like blues and whites. That's just socks. I can wear those all year round. If I'm knitting like specifically for my Christmas yarn box or my December yarn box, it's going to be traditional. But I love it when people do more than one version of a color in a set, because I feel like it gives just a little bit of depth, right? Whereas if you only had, let's say, these 3, that's great, but adding that changes it, you know? So I call this one Mr. Grinch, but it's actually their legal tender. And so this was the legal tender set. And I like that the sprinkles here have both this darker red, green and this red in it. And I like that this is not a solid.
Yeah.
I like that everything's just a little bit semi-solid, a little bit dancing, a little bit sprinkled. And so my cats got into the darkest green and ate at that mini a little bit. So I couldn't go quite as long as I like. And the Sockhead hats are fantastic, partly because of their extraordinarily, their length. And so this one I tend to wear like this, but I love with Sockheads the ability to do that double thick, super long brim.
Yeah, and that turns this into more of a beanie.
And then slouch, but I can't do that with this, even though it's maybe only 2 inches difference.
Yeah.
It's not a big difference, but the difference in the ability to make it a foldable slouchy hat. You just need all that length. So
yeah.
Emma's yarn.
Since we're talking FOs, I started this project in June with yarn that I bought in May as part of, I forget the name of it now, but there's a number of dyers and makers who all got together and sold things in May, yes, where a portion of their sales went to the Two-Spirit LGBTQ plus organization of their choice. And so I bought some very not Katie yarn called Badass Unicorn and from Ginger Snap. And I started it in June and I finally finished. So this is the indicator pattern from Stephanie Lotvin, looking at Sarah just to double check. So, and then I striped it with, this is called the Onyx colorway here. Yes, thank you, Erica. It was the Be a Freaking Unicorn sale, which I hope they do again. That was really wonderful. I discovered a lot of great dyers and makers. So, yep, this is it. It's really long. And I'm done. I just finished it in the last little bit to the point that I haven't even woven in the end yet.
So the one end is the pointy bit of the chevron and the other end is the arrow.
Yeah.
The chevron bit of the chevron.
Yeah.
And you modify the pattern a bit. It calls for,
it's part of her Knit Happy with self-striping yarn, I think it is. And so I just did it. I made the stripe up. So I did 14 rows here and 6 rows here. And the way I did it so I don't have all sorts of ends is this thing that I discovered a little while ago is when you get towards the end of your row, so pretend there's a bunch of stitches on here, what I would do is I'd wait until I had 6 stitches left, and then I would wrap the yarn 6 times around my needle loosely, cut it, and then do a double knot, magic knot with the new color, trim the ends, and keep knitting. And by wrapping it 6 times around, it actually, the knots are pretty much almost at the very end or close to the very end. So it worked out really quite well. Yeah. So there's only 2 ends to weave in instead of a gazillion. But yes, it is cozy. And because it's so long and it's a little narrow for how long it is, I think, but it will really snuggle up well for days like today, where if you are not where we are currently, I believe it's -31 Celsius outside without the wind, and then the wind will make it even colder. But yes, so it will be really, really wonderful protection against that nasty coldness.
Are you going to be blocking for width?
Probably likely. Yeah.
Or just padding it out and letting it do its thing?
I will not be pinning it, but I will be snugging it as wide as I can all the way down.
Right.
Yeah. And the nice thing is in my new place, so if you've been with us since before October, I moved in October, bought my own condo, and I have a really, really long table now. And I think I might actually be able to block this entirely on the table instead of taking up
your bed,
taking up floor space or my bed or anything like that, which was always a hard thing in my apartment. So that'll be exciting.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for me for FOs.
Yeah. We finished a few things, but we've also given some things away. I wanted to talk quickly about the Year of Sockheads thing, because we'll go into, well, maybe we should just go for it. So we've been knitting Sockheads all year. This is my 7th. Katie knit 8, I think, because we had 14.
I thought we only had 13, but sure.
Anyways, Katie knit a lot. I knit a lot. And what we did is we put them in brown paper bags, and Mom, who can't wear wool, got a special one, and she wasn't part of the game because she can only end up with 1 hat. Mom got to unwrap 2 of the bags in the middle of that, so there were always 2 hats in the middle that you could see. And on your turn, you could either open a new bag and take that hat, or take from the middle, or steal from someone else. And if they were stolen from, they then had the choice of stealing or opening from the middle,
taking one of the.
Yeah, we're not a stealing family. turns out.
No.
Also, I think we did a very good job of providing a range of colors that were very compatible with everybody.
Yes. It's true. We only had a couple of things being stolen, and I
Yeah.
think it was partly just part of it was to get something that really the color that suited that person well, but
Yeah.
also just to
Like,
actually have some stealing happen in a game where that's part of the
yeah.
thing.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. Most of what we did was stroll tonal tweed in very earthy rainbow colored, like earthy colors in technically a rainbow, but you would not look at that and go, oh, that's a rainbow.
And
then-
also a set of grays, including this color,
Yeah.
which is wellies. So they all had these beautiful, beautiful tweedy bits on them.
Yeah. And then we did a couple of bonuses in terms of like stripy and variegated and speckly.
Mama's asking that it drove her crazy. She's saying that it drove her crazy. And what was the mystery? Why couldn't we could tell her? Well, the mystery was that we were knitting them as family presents. We didn't want people to know that they were going to become family presents. And so we just didn't tell anybody.
And driving you crazy was a huge part of our joy, Mom. So thank you.
Yep. Our family's really big in anticipation. And the anticipation of the reveal to our mother was part of the joy.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So that is what we did with all those sockets. We have a few left. We have to figure out what's happening with those. Some people took extras at the end.
Yes, some people did take extras. And it was fun. Some people who I had thought that a particular person would take a particular color. It didn't happen that way.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really, really neat to see what people chose, and just kind of goes to show you that you know people well, but you don't always know exactly what people are going to choose. Yeah. So really, really fun. I have a friend who works with Outreach in Winnipeg, where it's currently very, very cold, and I know they're desperately in need for things like hats and mitts and blankets and stuff. And so I wouldn't mind taking one or two of the extra hats and giving them to that outreach team. But yeah, so that was the year of Sockheads. It was really fun.
Yep. Let's move on to works in progress. And I'm just going to start with what I'm knitting right now. It is a big black and gold blob. So I'm holding two yarns together at the same time. And I will pull them up so that you can see what they look like separately. So the KNITtingKAL, which is the KAL we run through our podcast, started and runs to the end of March. And the idea behind that is to knit something that makes you happy and stop dreaming, like stop it from being imaginary knitting and pull it into reality.
Yeah.
And
whether it's based on a technique, a dyer, a specific pattern, a combination thereof, whatever.
So I've got this color, which is a little out of my comfort zone, that I bought it for a sweater because it's variegated, and variegated in terms of lights and darks. I can do some variegated if it's colorful, but if you took a black and white photo, it would show up as all the same gray. Mm-hmm. This is definitely not my comfort zone. But I did a lot of time thinking, what do I want? What do I do? And then I realized that if I partnered it with something gray and fuzzy, it would just smooth out that. And because I hate pooling, just straight up. I hate flashing. I hate pooling. I hate it when a variegated yarn changes as the
stitch count
change. I just, so I was looking at like, what could I do side to side or with like striping and so what I'm doing is I'm kind of blurring it out. So I am working on the Cozy Classic Raglan, which is what I am wearing right now and is one of my favorite sweaters. So it is a really simple classic raglan with a couple of different shaping options for waist shaping or no waist shaping. And I know what size I like. I wear this one at least twice a week. And I knit this one out of DK because at that point, I couldn't do the thing where you take a fingering weight and hold it together with mohair, which is what everybody's doing in half their sweaters. And this sweater was written for, but also has information about what to do if you're just using a DK weight yarn. So I used a DK weight yarn, but now I have found this, which is cashmere, not mohair.
We are both allergic to mohair and alpaca. So hence needing the substitution.
Yeah. So that's what that is. What else have you got as a
I am currently working on a Musselburgh hat. It's a pretty great pattern written for lots of different gauges and yarn weights, etc. And the whole concept is you start here, you do some increases, and then you knit a really long tube. You stop to weave in your ends, and then you do some decreases, and then you shove the one end of the hat into the other end of the hat, so it's always double thick. And you also knit it long enough that it can either slouch or you can roll it up and have quadruple thick around your ears. So I am knitting that right now. And like I said earlier, this is the Wellies pattern, color from Knit Picks Tweed. I had to pause because Knit Picks also has tonal, and my brain was conflating the two.
Yeah.
So that's what this is my current stealth knitting project.
And stealth knitting is what Katie does during meetings at work. So it's like under the Zoom.
I'm working from home, and so I can not look at this and just zoom along on this while I'm zooming along on a meeting. Mwah, mwah.
So one of the things that Mom did for fun this year was to give my son yarn so that he could be weirded out, and also
so that she would knit him something.
I would give him socks. So this is the yarn that I am currently knitting. I thought I was ready to Kitchener. And if you listen to our podcast today from earlier, I was like, all I have to do left is Kitchener. But apparently I was wrong. I have a few decreases before I can Kitchener.
It's such the perfect Halloween colorway. It's called Get Witchy.
Yeah. By Area 51, who is a Regina, Saskatchewan dyer who is new to me, but I have been looking at their stuff for a really long time. A friend of mine orders from them, and they have a lot of rainbows. And they have a lot of, so they've got like a rainbow bright colorway. They've got a bunch of different rainbows. And so Mom gave Tias these. So I've started socks for him. And she also gave me a rainbow and a Christmassy color. So I'm really excited about those.
I also am working on a pair of socks right now. They are not stealth knitting for reasons that will become apparent momentarily. I just want to say this yarn kit went on sale the exact moment we started doing our live last month. And as soon as we stopped recording, I pulled up my phone and went to Etsy and got one of the last kits. So I'm super excited. This is from Ginger Snap Yarn, and it's called the Buffalo Plaid Sock Kit, because they have created the perfectest buffalo plaid red yarn. This is amazing. It's DK, and it also comes with 3 colors. The mid-tone gray is a little hard to tell from the white up here, but this is it in the toe. So a dark gray, a mid gray, and a white. I don't think I've ever made a sock with contrasting colors, and I bought one with 3 because I have a real weakness for pretty much everything buffalo plaid right now. I just want everything buffalo plaid. So I bought this not knowing what I would do with it. Knew it would become house socks. I knew that. And then on the drive out here, Brainwave came in, and I realized to kind of do some slip stitches to make a fun pattern up at the top. So I'm all done sock 1. I started this on December 28th. I'm done it already, and I just need to weigh my yarn to figure out how much I have left, and then I'll start sock 2. Loving it. And the reason this yarn is still available, and they're doing it in sweater sets. I just bought a sweater quantity of yarn, so I'm not allowed, but it's really, really tempting.
They'll probably do custom orders if you were to ask nicely later.
So Ginger Snap, perfect. The thing that I also got with this is this. I got a Buffalo Plaid project bag that also has wires up here, so it holds itself open nicely.
I usually only see wired bags when they're bigger bags.
And look at the inside. It's got bears with fishing gear and camping gear, and it's just super duper fun. Here, I'll show you the 3 different colors of contrast, so you can kind of hopefully see them a little bit better.
Oh yeah, that's way better.
So now you can kind of see the difference between the light gray and the dark gray. And then, yeah, this is just such a stunning red. So, and in the process of starting these, I realized that I own a dozen sets of 2.75 millimeter socks in 9 millimeter, in 9-inch circulars, in DPNs, in long versions, blah, blah, blah. But none, I couldn't find any in 3 millimeter. So on the way from my place, we went to Woolsey Wool. I bought the 9-inch circs and the DPNs. And yeah, buffalo plaid is not a color, but it's this. It's basically gingham in red and black. I don't know why it's called that, honestly. Good question, Marcella. But this is buffalo plaid.
It's really popular right now. You can get it in a lot of shirts, a lot of PJs. I got Christmas PJs this year that aren't Christmassy. They're buffalo plaid.
Yeah. I bought a jacket, like a bomber style jacket with like fake sheep shearling up in the thing for when it's a shoulder season again. It's not thick enough for what we're dealing with right now. But yes, the bears on the inside are super adorable. I didn't expect that. I was very thrilled when I opened it up.
I've got a question about the gnome pattern at the beginning. That's called Leave Gnome Stone Unturned. If you buy the pattern right now, it will be 1,000 files roughly, because I released it as a mystery knit along, and on the 5th I go in and I simplify the files, and I do like one PDF for the pattern in English and one PDF for the story, and then another one for like the extras that went with it, because there's some recipes and some coloring pages and some stuff like that. So you can buy it right now as Leave Gnome Stone Unturned, but don't be like flabbergasted when you open up the section of your library. It's going to be simpler soon.
And it's available on Ravelry and
Payhip.
Yeah.
In both English and German. When I simplify the clues, it will be also available in just the pattern part, not the extras, like not the story and the other stuff. It will also be in Norwegian and French.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm working to get more languages, but it's tricky to find people that understand knitting who are available, and how do you vet them? And it's not a simple process to get things in other languages. And I've got some where people have offered to do it and it worked, but now they're not interested in doing translating anymore or whatever. So I've got someone's like, I really want to translate this for Russian. I was like, great. I've got a couple patterns that are in Japanese, I think, or maybe just the one, or Chinese. And so it's like real hit and miss.
Yeah.
But there are a couple languages where I've got people fairly reasonably
locked in.
So
good.
Yeah.
What other whips do you have with you?
I wanted to talk about 2 more things. One is just real simple. It is the simplest of socks, because I was at the heel in Matthias's sock with all that black, and we were going to watch a movie. So I needed a little bit of don't look at it knitting. So this is another sock I started, and it is a Regia color, Regia, in the Fadewalker. It is color 07966.
Ooh, good name.
I know, they're super evocative, but I bet they don't get confused.
Well, and their yarn is workhorse. Like this is going to last a long time as a sock. It's not as soft as some of the other ones that we've been showing, but it's going to last a long time.
Yeah, I really like making socks out of these. Or no, I like having socks out of these. I like knitting them slightly less, but it's not a significant thing for me, even though for a lot of rustic yarns, you and I can't handle knitting with them. Like there are some yarns that are sort of people love for color work or whatever, and they don't like, first of all, they scratch me, itchy, I can't wear them. But there are a lot of them that even like start cutting my skin as I wear them, as I knit. So it's but this kind of Regia is definitely on the softer side of that spectrum.
Sorry,
the crunchy side of
Sears,
softer side of Sears.
Yeah. Shut up. I said earlier that I was going to talk about how I was trying to deal with that gap that came up from square heels in this one. And what I did is I twisted the right side stitches, and I don't think it actually made a difference. There's still a pretty good gap there and there.
Yeah, really big. What I would do if I were you is I would take a length of that yarn on the needle and just sew up one side, sniggle over.
Yeah.
Sew down the other.
Well, and my heels are always really dry, and so the heels take a lot of pounding. So I will definitely be doing that once I finished weaving in the ends that you couldn't see earlier.
And now that that is a problem, if you do contrast heels and toes, if you just leave a longer tail at the bottom of the heel, you can go back and use that.
Yeah. I also have one more whip.
Okay. Mine is whip adjacent. I've swatched, but not cast on.
Oh, cool.
So quick. This is the swatch for my Alaska sweater, which is a top-down raglan. I will be knitting 2 sweaters
at the same time.
So excited. This one the main feature is that starting around here, there's a beautiful silhouette of tall trees that goes into like as they lengthen out. There's also some shorter trees, so it's like this beautiful tree thing. And the sample was knit in Tweedy yarn, and I happen to have this and both an orange and a navy. I'm going to use the navy. I'm just going to go for the strong contrast. Yeah. A lot of my bottoms are darker denim or whatever, and I think too that'll.
Yeah.
So soon, 2 sweaters.
Amazing. I've had a bit of a saga with with these mitts. So this yarn is called Paradise Alpha. It's from Mud Punch. It's a thicker sock yarn, and it is just stunning. You can actually get a sense of how beautiful the colors are here. It doesn't photograph very well. This is the yarn, if you listen to the podcast, that Sarah couldn't.
I can't shut up about.
She wasn't knitting very fast because she kept stopping to enjoy the colors, and I get it. I won this and a pair of beaded earrings in matching colors from Bead Souk. The two partnered up for a giveaway. So I won this, and I wanted something that would really show off the colors in a way that wasn't just stripes. So I knit this. This is a pair of fingerless mitts based on the Jaywalker patterns. This is called the Fadewalker Mitt. And I knit it using my normal sock weight 9-inch DPNs, which was a heckin' tight gauge with all of this back and forth, center double decrease, etc. So I switched at the gusset to a bigger size needle and then did the rest of the hand in that and realized, oh, I prefer that. So I ripped out the entire thing and started it again from the beginning at this much more forgiving, stretchy gauge. I have no idea if my gauge is anything compared to how the pattern was written. Full disclosure. And I got to the point where I've started the gusset. That's what these stitch markers are for. And I realized recently that I can't figure out where my gusset ends and the pattern begins, because you're doing increases right next to each other. And somewhere along the way, I lost the thread, and I'm done. I'm done with this pattern.
So
I'm not.
Let's see.
Yeah, pull it out. That's it. I'm going to make sure that I don't lose all of my stitch markers here. But I'm frogging it, and I'm not going to reknit it. And this will become a pair of socks with really beautifully colored stripes.
So while you do that, I will read a comment from Anne here, who says she has the same struggle with her heels. I actually pick up the floats carried on the gappy side and knit up a column on the inside, then work the final loop together with the preceding stitch, which all is English but makes no sense to my brain. I've read it 3 times now.
Yeah, I can't quite figure it out either.
Maybe, Anne, do you want to put that on Instagram? Do you want to shoot a tutorial video for us?
Yeah.
Or a photo video, maybe, or I don't know. No pressure. This is mostly me being cheeky.
Hold this.
The Alaska hat is fun to knit as well. Yeah, I definitely will have enough left over that if I wanted to, I will knit the Alaska hat.
This is it. We're done.
We're done.
But this is great because I need another sock now to knit stealthily while in Zoom meetings.
Because you're almost done that Musselburgh.
Well, yeah, I am. And this is not... There are too many sections of this where I can't.
Yeah, there's like knit. An afternoon here and an afternoon there. Yeah. But
so these will become my next stealth knitting project. Thank you. Anne has committed to sharing on Instagram. Thank you.
Never hesitate to give a cheeky request because people say yes more often than you'd expect.
It's so funny. But you know what? I think that's it for me.
Yep.
I think I'm out of projects to share and talk about. If you want, do tune in to our audio podcast. It's coming out it comes out every other Wednesday. So the next one will become this upcoming Wednesday. We talk about a lot of the stuff that we talked about here, but we also talk about some board games that we've really enjoyed. We talk a little bit more about the Imaginating and
our more out than in thing that's happening. The Year of Gnomes is happening.
Oh, yeah.
So just quick Year of Gnomes. If you knit a gnome in a month, in the calendar month, there's a place to enter. it's obviously my gnome patterns that I want you to knit. So if you knit an Imagine Landscapes gnome pattern in a month, there you can enter to win prizes. I'm going to be drawing prizes quarterly. I'm going to be knitting them in the order I publish them. And I'm going to be using a restricted palette of just 4 colors because that's what makes me happy. Other people are knitting just one gnome, entering that and calling that a day. Other people are going to do the same gnome over and over. And there are some really little patterns, so it's not necessarily a big deal. Like there's one that's called Niblet, and I actually use it as earrings. I'm not wearing it today, but it is like an earring-sized gnome when done in fingering weight. It's like a 45-minute gnome. And you could knit one pattern in a rainbow. You could just knit different patterns in different colors. There's no real requirements for you to make it every year or all the different gnomes or anything like that. It's very open-ended. It's about just having as much fun as we can as a group while knitting gnomes. So that's what that is. There is a page on my website, and I will link things. There will be show notes here.
I was going to say
in a couple days.
If you're interested in anything that we've talked about today, come back and we will be having links to Sarah's Ravelry page for her projects. And I have a blog where I track my projects.
Yeah.
So we'll have links to those things for you to find later.
We won't be able to remember everything we said, and I won't be going through and watching this. I'll just do some quick and dirty show notes. If we do very thorough show notes for our audio podcast. So if you're looking for something we've mentioned, definitely try there. It's on ImagineLandscapes.com. And there's a podcast link in the tab section. Find the show notes, find the details. I will do my best for show notes, but we're going to keep these YouTube live things on the loosey-goosey side so that we keep doing them rather than feeling like it's work.
Also just want to say that something that's a really good idea that I've started to do over the last few years is I keep a locking stitch marker pinned to the inside of my project bags so that I can store stitch markers there. Mm-hmm. Either like now when I just frogged a thing, or I'll load it up with stitch markers for projects that I'm knitting.
Yeah. And finally, before we finish up, Patty is asking me if I have any coupon codes for the gnome patterns. Because there are no required gnomes, what I've done is on Ravelry, I can set up a permanent discount where if you put 4 patterns in your cart and check out, one of them will be free. There's no code needed. It happens automatically. You have to do the add to cart option rather than the buy now option, because buy now is just singly. But if you put 4 in, one of them will be free. And that's what I can do there. PayHip does not allow as much discounting options. It's quite inflexible, and I have to go in and do everything like really weirdly and manually and stuff like that. So it's a difficult one for me to do there. If that's a really big deal for you, do email me. Give me a couple days. My email is
a lot.
It's hopping these days over here in my life. So do give if that's a big deal. But if you can do it, Ravelry's already set up. Just put 4 of my patterns in, check out at once. It's going to happen.
Also, Sarah has a newsletter with advanced
sometimes I give advanced details and
there's stuff.
There's usually a better coupon there for anything that's new. I'll often give them an extra 10% over whatever everybody else is getting, or every now and then I just give out like ridiculous coupons to the newsletters and things like that. So thank you. All right. Have a great January, and we'll see you here on YouTube more on time next time, because I'm going to remember that Safari doesn't play with YouTube for live streaming.
I'm going to finish my tea and we're going to go play a board game.
Happy New Year and happy knitting.